A very blessed good morning to some, good afternoon to others, and even good evening to the rest of this listening audience. This is Dr. Samuel O. Kirkland Sr. I am the shepherd leader of Shepherd's Care Ministries of Tampa Bay, Shepherd's Care Institute, and Shepherd's Care Ministry, Outreach Ministry. It is a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak to you once again for another midweek sharing moment. As it is with so many of you, we are now, hopefully, prayerfully, finding some relief from this pandemic, this plague that I call it, this COVID-19 virus. However, a word of caution: don't be fooled by the forked tongues of those who would mislead you to think that we're out of the problem, if you will, out of the fire, out of harm's way. Because the COVID virus mutates. Viruses, like every other living entity, wants to live, and it will jump from host to host in order to survive. So to have 70% of those in this republic vaccinated and so-called herd immunity shall take place. But how can that be a safe place when 15% of the world is vaccinated? So I don't think that continents or distances makes a difference with this virus, because we live in a global society. For the virus to have mutated and a new variant is now widespread in Southeast Asia, Vietnam in particular, we're just 20 hours away from having another highly infectious virus to come upon the shores of this republic. So I don't want to be a merchant of gloom and doom. However, I do want to be a voice. I want to be a voice that would shout out to you from the wall, a watchman on the wall, if you will, and say, be not deceived by the forked tongue of those who speak one thing out of one side of their mouths and speak something altogether different out of the other side of their mouth. So I share with you the same anxiety as to how safe we are and how close we are to being able to get back to at least a little bit of what we call normalcy that we had before this virus outbreak. So folks, a word to the wise: be safe. What's the problem with wearing a mask when you're around folks? What's so difficult about social distancing when you're in a public domain? What's so hard about washing your hands? And what's so hard about wearing gloves if you're in a supermarket where many people are touching things? Kids are touching things. In the vegetable department, people are touching the fruits and the vegetables. You don't know what they have. What's the problem in wearing a pair of gloves in that particular setting? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But then again, I hear so many other folks say the same thing that you're hearing me say. this morning. To be safe is to be cautious. And to be cautious of your environment requires that you think. That's all. As they would say back in the day, just common sense and a little bit of perseverance. And to thine own self first, be safe. That's all. That's all. Now, today's sharing moment is going to be a short sharing moment, but I think it is very important that I share with you something that is the utmost importance right now. In the infamous word of former President Reagan, when he was running for the office, and he was able to put his opponent back on his heels by making a simple statement, and it's a statement that said, "It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy." In other words, the point that he was making, that all of the other stuff that was being said on the campaign trail, it was all about the economy. Why? Because this republic is predicated upon the economy. This capitalistic government is not a democracy. We would hope that it would be. We think that it would be. We pledge allegiance to a flag, and we say that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We say all those things. We probably have more churches and per capita than any other country in the world. In any given community, you'll find a church on every corner. Almost. But all of those things we say, but do we live up to that saying? Do we say that this nation is predicated on out of many one? Out of many one? That's what's written across the top of the building, the Supreme Court. Is that true? That's a question that you have to answer. Out of many, one? In other words, does every person have a vote, a say in this nation? Or is that trying to ask for a little bit too much from a nation that's predicated upon the haves and the have-nots? And the haves are doing everything they can to keep those without, to stay without, even to the point of blatantly trying to prevent people from voting. As an American black man, a native black American, descendant of slaves, a descendant of the slaves, who lived through a portion of Jim Crow and all of the other segregation that I experienced in my life and all of my travels. Regardless of all of those different titles that may have been given to me by God, and I appreciate that. But I never lost sight of the fact that I was a black man. And to be pulled over by a police officer, it didn't matter if I was Dr. Kirkland, Pastor Kirkland, or whatever the case may be. I was a black man whom this white officer felt that he should make sure that I stayed in my place. One of those uppity Negroes needed to be knocked back down and become subservient to him all over again. So my message, be it ever so difficult for some, is simply to say, it's tribalism, not democracy. Stupid. It's tribalism, not democracy. Stupid. And as the saying goes, the vernacular of today, we as the multi-races that are in this republic, this melting pot of many different races, gender, sexual orientation, we must learn to stay in our lane. Because if we don't, we're headed for a head-on collision. Stay in your lane. It's tribalism, not democracy. Stupid. I say it again. I've said it very early in my sharing moments. That is tribalism. It's tribalism. And certain tribes think that they are superior to others. Survival of the fittest. Darwin did a great injustice to mankind with that proposition. Survival of the fittest. So now there's one group in all of humanity decided that they are the fittest. And John Calvin didn't help it, or any other social therapists, if you will, in saying that, yes, indeed, we know that we are blessed by God if we have possessions. Those who have more is because God loves them more than he does the ones who don't have. So the haves are blessed and the have-nots basically are cursed, if you believe that. But for me, and prayerfully in my home, we're going to praise the one and only true and living Creator, one God. And it certainly is not money. It certainly isn't possessions. Because until the day I see a Brinks armored vehicle following a hearse to the graveyard, until I see that, and until someone comes back from death and tell me how important money is in order to get into the final resting place of the Most High, money is simply a tool, and I need only that is enough to sustain me and my family. But to you it may mean more. Maybe you're still trying to follow the example of someone who enslaved you, who treated you as less than a human being. For those who are of the Jewish faith, the Holocaust, have you forgotten? Those of you from the, if you will, Oriental persuasion, have you forgotten the opium that was used on you in order to control you and take your land? Have you forgotten? To the Native Americans, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten? The smallpox blankets? Have you forgotten? And have you, some of the Europeans, immigrants, all immigrants, have you forgotten the prejudice that you had to experience when you hit these shores? Have you forgotten? And have you forgotten Native Black Americans, that you were brought here, forced to come? You built this republic, and you never made a dime.